A narrow street in East Berlin. The curtains are drawn, the lights are dim, and conversations drop to a whisper when footsteps pass outside. There are no visible patrols or immediate signs of danger. The threat here was an invisible, omnipresent fear of observation. In the early 1950s, the German Democratic Republic established the Ministry for State Security. They were commonly known as the Stasi. At its inception, the institution operated with a standard national security mandate: protect the borders and monitor direct political opposition. So how does a basic security apparatus grow into one of modern history's most suffocating, society-wide surveillance networks? The answer lies in its subtlety. True societal control rarely begins with dramatic overreach. It takes root quietly, disguised as routine protection. The system expanded through a process of incremental creep. Over decades, the state continuously broadened its definition of what constituted a threat. This image shows the physical artifacts of that control: stacks of state-issued passports. What began as targeted monitoring of suspected dissidents eventually expanded to encompass ordinary citizens making standard travel requests or expressing minor disagreements. Every observation fed an institutional machine. A whisper was documented into a report, reviewed and logged in a central archive. Resulting administrative actions, a denied application or redirected career, simply introduced friction into a person's life, leaving no visible scars. To manage millions of records and requests, the bureaucracy required massive physical infrastructure. By the 1970s, an estimated 90,000 full-time staff walked through the doors of imposing facilities like this one to keep the engine running. By replacing overt physical violence with quiet administrative roadblocks, the state built a control system that was almost impossible to actively resist. Yet even 90,000 officers face a logistical limit. They could not keep an entire nation under constant, direct observation. To bridge that gap, the Stasi relied on social proximity. The state expanded through 180,000 informal informants, colleagues and neighbors reporting on their social circles. Citizens joined this web through a recruitment loop, some to secure a promotion, others simply to deflect the state's scrutiny away from themselves. Midway through its development, the operation evolved. As you can see in these meticulously organized workspaces, gathering intelligence had become an industrial process. The goal shifted from simply monitoring behavior to actively shaping it. The psychological weight of the system rested on uncertainty. The Stasi didn't need to observe every single action. Once people realized they could not reliably distinguish between private and monitored spaces, they began to police themselves. The constant paralyzing assumption that any private space could be monitored proved to be the state's most effective tool for control. Despite its enormous reach, this machine had a singular vulnerability. Its daily survival relied entirely on the passive compliance of the public. In the late autumn of 1989, that compliance evaporated. Political changes swept across Eastern Europe, and as citizens gathered at the Berlin Wall, the physical barriers of the state fractured. Almost immediately, citizens marched into Stasi offices. They demanded access to the hidden archives, determined to reclaim the records that had dictated their lives. The discovery unmasked the true scale of the system. Millions of meticulously maintained paper files, stacked floor to ceiling, documenting the minutiae of everyday existence. Opening those folders revealed a deep personal tragedy. Husbands had reported on wives. Friends had cataloged the casual complaints of their peers. Mundane social interactions had been systematically harvested and categorized as state intelligence. The history of the Stasi stands as a stark warning. Totalitarian control rarely arrives overnight. It normalizes itself incrementally. One file, one report, and one administrative decision at a time, until the boundary between security and control silently disappears.